Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RedGamer.com video, we're going to be discussing PC versus console. It's a bit of a tired argument, a very old argument. However, a couple of interviews have recently popped up, the latest being from AlienWare co-founder and vice president Frank Azure. He believes with consoles evolving to be a lot more like PCs, the PC has basically won by default. EA, by the way, have said very similar. In an interview they had with PC Gamer, they said that the fact that they're actually creating their engines primarily for the PC and then scaling downwards for console hardware makes things a lot easier for them. Now, let's talk about this logically. I will, by the way, link both interviews in the video description. I believe Amy covered the EA one a few days ago, so I'm going to primarily focus on the Alienware one. The console market and PC market have converged in ways that we've never seen before. Consoles a lot more like PCs, and PCs starting to look a lot more like consoles, said Frank Azure to GameSpot. They're having to evolve in order to survive. To be a lot more like PC side, they can't come in with a $300 to $400 piece of subsidized hardware. They can maybe afford to subsidize $50 or $100 because of life cycle they're going to have to recoup the investment over the cycle, or the customer's journey is going to be about 2 to 3 years, not the 7. Console architecture, funnily enough, is a lot more like PC than ever before, so I think that's a real testament that PC's won. The console guys have realised they can't operate on a 7-year canvas anymore because they can't keep up with the amount of innovation with HDR, 4K, VR, and of course the VR revolution. Evolution, excuse me. Now, just so we're all on the same page, a console manufacturer doesn't typically worry so much about profit on release. So in other words, if you buy an Xbox One or a PS4, yes, it's nice for Sony or Microsoft to get money back, when you're buying the system, but oftentimes consoles are actually sold at a loss or with no net profit. The reason behind that is quite simple, of course. Their primary goal is to get you involved in their ecosystem. So whether that is you buy one of their first-party controllers where they'll make a profit, whether that's a third-party controller and there's licensing fees involved, whether that's you buying games on PSN or Xbox Live, whether that's the PlayStation Plus subscription or Xbox Live Gold, or even as simple as you purchasing a title. They basically get a cut of the profits for that title being permitted to exist on the console. So in other words, they're not necessarily interested in money up front, they're more interested in getting you involved for the long haul. That's one of the reasons that they want to keep you a happy customer for those multiple years. The problem is, as you all know, console technology is lagging behind what is acceptable for, well, now. The PS4 was a bit weird when it actually came out. The Xbox was the same. They came out at a time when really console hardware wasn't capable of putting out enough performance for the price to run 4K. 4K TVs, however, weren't exactly super popular at the time, but even so, we knew that they were going to happen. Now, the reason I say that they weren't capable is because at the time, when the PS4 and the Xbox One came out, 28nm process was still very much the norm, and therefore putting the amount of performance they need in a console-sized space without essentially strapping a liquid nitrogen cooling tank onto the side, it just wasn't really feasible. Sure, they could do it, small form factor PCs have certainly done so back then in 2013, but it wouldn't be cost efficient, and it would basically not allow them to break even, and they would really be at a major loss. Now we're seeing the PS4 Pro and the Scorpio being released, or have been released, depending on which console you're referring to, and I think it's fair to say that we can safely say that iterative consoles or iterative hardware is going to be very much the way forward. I fully expect there to be a PS5, but I fully expect there to be a PS5 Pro as well, at least most likely. PCs don't have to worry about that. That isn't to say that if you buy a PC, 6 years down the line you won't need to upgrade hardware, because that is one of the issues with PCs. but it's also been the benefit of consoles. It's like, back in the day, just for example, if I bought a PlayStation 2, sure, if I bought a Slimline afterwards, then yeah, you get the benefits of it's a slimmer console, it might have slightly more reliable laser and reading of discs, but overall it doesn't really make that much of a difference. A couple of consoles in history have had slight tweaks to their clock speed, but overall the system essentially performs the same. There are a couple of minor aesthetic differences, there's differences in maybe power and heat, but overall the system is the same as the launch model. Consoles therefore had a major benefit over PCs in that respect. Now, do I necessarily agree with Frank, who is once again the Alienware co-founder? So it's fair to say that he has a bit of an investment in saying this. Well, kinda. I mean, it depends on your perspective. I don't think consoles are going away ever, and frankly I wouldn't really want them to. I do think PCs are becoming a lot more console-like, and by which I mean that with new APIs like DirectX 12 and Vulkan, it's a lot easier to actually code low level and get good performance out of the system. Plus as well, back in, let's say, the late 90s to even maybe 2007, 2009, it was a bitch sometimes getting games running on the PC. Now, it has become subsequently easier over the years, and you don't have to worry about, config files and all of that stuff now, and conflicts, IRQ conflicts of sound card. That's not really an issue, but still, games sometimes now don't work first time, and that isn't really the case of consoles. But with that said, consoles now still have huge ass patches. Like, I just did an article a day or two ago on Final Fantasy 15. There's like a day one patch which is 7.7 gigabytes. Now, admittedly, some of that is because of features, but the features are so important, like the ability to pause and your decisions as you're making decisions in a battle, so you can make better choices. It's like, well, I don't want to play the game without that, so I'm definitely going to download that 7.7 gigabyte patch. So really, it's a huge ass download. It's a lot of space. It takes a lot of time, and for folks with slow connections, it is definitely a problem. Do I 100% agree with him? No. But the fact that consoles now are no longer the lead development platform, and they were back in the early to mid days of the Xbox 360, the PC was very much on live support when it came to games, and it is fair to say, like, even I, who was very much a PC gamer, pretty much abandoned the PC for a couple of years. I didn't completely abandon it, but I played it a lot less, with Xbox Live making online gaming really easy, with the fact that you could just take your 360 to a friend's house and, play on another television if they happen to have a couple in their home, which, most people do, let's be honest. It just was easier. The games didn't look that much graphically different. Yeah, the PCs did look a little better, but not massively so, especially with the price difference between like a 360 and a high-end PC gaming setup. Now that's no longer the case, and the PS4 Pro, it's a good console. I'm actually reviewing it now, as you know, but I don't necessarily think it's like damn well impressive. It's a nice bit of kit, no doubt, but the fact that games don't necessarily look better at 1080p, and yes, downscaling can help, but not as much as you'd expect. Like, downscaling on a PC, from my mind, is still superior, because there's still so much more you can do. And of course, not only that, but you can use things like Sweet Effects to inject better anti-aliasing, or for example, if you want to tweak the lighting, and all of the different mods you can use, and it does start lending itself issues when we start talking about DirectX 12, and hopefully we start to see this opening up, especially on Windows 10, because I've discussed those issues previously, where it's very much like it's very difficult for developers to put their hooks in, so to speak, into the API. Basically what happens is when a game is running, a lot of the time a process is injecting, so it will basically jump in between the communication of the graphics driver, DirectX 12 in the game, so that's how, for example, frame rate counters have worked traditionally, but it becomes a lot harder to do that with DirectX 12, so hopefully that does start improving down the line. Ultimately though, I don't think and I don't want Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo or any of these guys to go anywhere, because I think it's better for the industry with more competition. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I want more competition in the industry, I don't want less competition in the industry. If it was up to me, in a perfect world, Microsoft, Sony and Nintendo would have a roughly equal shares in the marketplace, and you would also have a really good amount of competition for Windows. One can argue that Linux has come on leaps and bounds, but it's still nowhere near to the point it needs to be. And honestly, I'm a bit surprised that Vulkan hasn't become more successful. I think it is. They regularly put on developer summits and they are starting to make headway into the industry, but it's not quite maybe as fast as what we'd want. Then again, I think we can also argue that there isn't even as many DirectX 12 games as maybe we expected, but those are starting to come out slowly. So as I said, I personally believe, my personal opinion, is that yes, consoles are becoming a lot more PC-like in terms of the architecture, but I don't think you can take that as consoles are dead. Forget consoles. I think there are certainly arguments to be made that the PC is a better platform, and I think performance-wise it's pretty obvious at this point that even by the time the Scorpio comes out, there's going to be much more powerful PC hardware available. The PS4 Pro is like roughly about as powerful as a mid-range GPU on a PC. Yes, it's got more efficiency, but by 2017 early, there's going to be ridiculously more powerful GPUs. I mean, it's looking like Vega is going to be released in the Q1, and that GPU is once again going to be leaps and bounds more powerful than the GPU inside the PS4, and the RX 480 is already considerably more powerful than the PS4 Pro GPU. It's just nice. I like the customization of PC. With that said though, I also like the ability of console. But yeah, I personally agree to an extent with these interviews, especially the Alienware, when they're starting to talk about the fact that the canvases are becoming so close to one another now that you can't really, there's no clear-cut generations at this rate. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.